Good morning. This is Maureen Grant, and a warm welcome to Roundtable. Today we have stories around the Queensbury elections yesterday, local election results. We also have something around mental health, and as you know, this is the year of for mental health, and we have a story around the former England footballer Aaron Lennon being sectioned. Hospital waiting list and the rise and the expected rise of that. So what do we think about that? Prince Philip steps down from public duties, announced yesterday. And they toured Yorkshire, the successes around the Tour de Yorkshire, which was at the weekend. And of course, we cannot leave without talking about Bradford City playoff, which is happening right now. And exciting times for Bradford City. So we have, as usual, some very interesting guests who I will ask to introduce themselves now. We'll start with Helen.
Hello. My name is Helen Weir. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm working with people for all kinds of things, anxiety, smoking cessation, weight loss, fears and phobias, fertility, pain, all kinds of different things. Anything where the mind's involved, that's where I'm working with people.
Sounds very interesting.
Yes.
Jim.
Hi there. I'm Jim Saville. I'm a retired teacher. Nowadays I do a lot of work with the Bradford Cinderella Club, a local children's charity, and on the folk scene and the spoken word scene. I help out at Clockheaton Folk Festival, and I do a lot of talks and recitations myself of mine and other people's poetry.
Fantastic. And Martin.
Hello, Martin O'Connell, retired somewhat disgracefully, doing as little as possible nowadays, but somehow still managed to do things. Got a new interest in my garden at last, which has been pretty disgraceful for 3 years, but now it's all coming back together. So that's all I'm doing at the moment. Nothing very exciting, just retired.
So good time for good and bad times for gardening. Not much rain.
I've got water.
Oh, good.
I keep it hidden.
Right. Okay, so let's move right into the news stories. So 5-way race to secure a seat on Bradford Council Queensbury ward has been retaken by the Conservative Party, with candidate Andrew Senior attracting more than half the overall votes cast. I think it's about 56%. Residents went to the polls yesterday for the by-election triggered by the resignation of Conservative Councillor Lisa Carmody earlier in the year. So, and have you been following the local elections? What are your thoughts about that?
I've just been watching the results this morning, and I don't think anybody's too surprised really about how it's turned out for Labour. It's quite interesting how UKIP seem to have just been wiped away really overnight.
Yes.
That's quite an interesting thing. But then I suppose, do they really have a place anymore in politics? Do we need UKIP anymore now that we're leaving Europe?
Yeah, I think that's a question being asked, that's widely being asked. Yeah, but I think Labour was somewhere, but only about 4%. Is it 18? Maybe 18%. I'm thinking. I can't quite remember at the top of my head. But a very small percentage of the votes. So they weren't even second. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And the UKIP vote seems to have gone to the Tories, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So they're clearly a very strong party at the moment, aren't they? The other thing that was interesting was I noticed that the Green Party have got a few more councillors this time, and I wondered whether whether that's been related to the guy that's just lost the court case about school holidays.
Yes.
About taking children out of school holidays.
Yeah.
He was urging people to vote Green. Because the Green Party are in favour of allowing some flexibility for head teachers and allowing children off school, and I wonder whether that has had that effect, or whether people are becoming more environmentally aware and therefore leaning towards the Green Party. I don't know. That's quite an interesting one, really.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to watch, actually. Martin?
I'm not really surprised that the Conservatives are doing well, and I think I agree with Helen that obviously they've taken the UKIP vote. It's a bit worrying. Early days, this council election, from the perspective of the Labour Party. Why are they not doing well? Is it a leader thing? I mean, you've got to remember that even if you bring in the Brexit, which I know we're not talking about, both leaders, both parties sort of, I know the referendum was, and it was thrown out by the Conservatives. Yes, that's fine, and it was won, but now they're pushing through on this Brexit, and I know that the Labour Party, Corbyn, he wanted the Brexit as well. So I think what's happened there is, well, you know, they want Brexit. The Conservatives are really in the driving seat at the present moment. Perhaps people who don't like Corbyn and the fact that he's come up with all these various things, which I don't think a lot of them are that off base, really, to be honest, because I think there's such a difference now. There's such a gap between the Conservative and the Labour Party, and I think a lot of people are looking at Corbyn as, is he a viable leader, and maybe coming up on the inside track, coming over, because she's getting all the, if you ever look on the media, it's all May, and you very much rarely see anything about Corbyn. I don't think that's quite fair. So, and being an old-fashioned wet from years ago and so forth, and I've never been, I think the Conservative Party are a different party to what I even remember years ago. They seem to be able to want to get a really good vote, get an election, and then run roughshod over a lot of things, and I worry about that, you know, because if Labour doesn't pull up its socks and everything, they're going to have 5 years in power, and what damage it do to national health, I don't know. You know, schools, etc. I don't know what they're all about there, but it is a worry in the fact that they could really get a massive mandate from the country.
So I just want to pick up something you said with Jim. Do you feel that this is an indication of this is a local by-election? Is this some indication of something else? I mean, is it about, people tend to vote locally on local issues. Do you think something else is going on here?
Maureen, I couldn't agree with you more. All the theory of the two guests about the national politics, I don't think is relevant. It was a local election. Conservative councillor has been replaced by another Conservative. It usually happens that way. The sitting party, as it were, has an advantage. Yes, there will be a little bit of spillover from the national elections, where the Tories also have an advantage, apparently. But local elections, as they always should be, are decided by local activities, local people, and local events and needs.
Yeah, that is very true. So, but I think it's kind of funny how, I mean, I think it's because we have kind of a local election. At the time there's a campaign for a national election, the two things seem to be getting merged.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We don't know that because we're not in the minds of the voters. Yeah. And I certainly wasn't one of them this time.
Yeah, so let's move on to the second issue, which is related to this. And is more specifically, so Labour hopes of preventing a Tory landslide in next month's general election have suffered a demoralising blow after a night of losses and in local elections. The results are still coming in across the country, but Jeremy Corbyn's party has lost at least 125 seats, and that was at 9 o'clock this morning. I think the picture must have changed, and I don't know which direction it's changed in. But have you any thoughts about that, Helen?
I think it's interesting what Martin was saying about Jeremy Corbyn. I don't think he's a very saleable person for the Labour Party. I don't think he's seen as very popular. He's not being. He just has an unfortunate way of being presented in the media, and I don't necessarily know that's actually him personally, but it's how the media portray him. And I think he's on a hiding to nothing, the poor guy. I don't think he stands a chance, really, because of how... I mean, the media is so powerful and how they manipulate his personality and his persona and make him this certain being that you see in the media.
Yeah, I just want to push a little bit about you think it's the media that is actually portraying him in this way.
I don't think
why do you think that?
Well, I don't know why they do that, but it's almost like bullying, isn't it? They can sense a weakness and they sort of go in for the kill a bit sometimes, the media. But I mean, it's not entirely... You know, he's not entirely unblameable, is he? He obviously has some say in himself, what he says, how he presents himself. And I suppose Labour have a bit of a history, don't they, of unfortunate leaders, really. I sort of think back to people like Neil Kinnock. I mean, he just couldn't win, could he? And so I just think... I think from May's point of view, this is quite a strategic move, because if she acts now and has a general election now, then this ousts Jeremy Corbyn at this point, because he'll have to resign if they lose the election, which is looking fairly likely unless something major changes in the next few weeks.
There's a lot of weeks left.
Yeah, so anything could happen. But if it goes the way it appears to be going at the moment, he's going to have to go. That's going to be Labour's excuse to get rid of him. But that means she's got 5 clear years until the next election where they can then work on whoever's his successor and build him up. Whereas I think had she waited for the election to run its course naturally and to fall naturally, then Jeremy could well have been ousted before then. They could have brought in a new, sexier, in inverted commas, leader, and they could have totally reversed the party's fortune. So from her point of view, it's a strategic move, isn't it? Because she'll get longer this way, I think.
Jim, a sexier leader needed there for Labour?
I've not met the guy, so I can't really say whether he's sexy or not. All we've got is the media, and we don't know how that's landed. What we do know is his record, which he has been challenged for leadership, and he has won more than once nationally within the Labour Party. He's a very popular leader away from the MPs. With the people, he's a very popular person.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Is it going to be the national image that dominates, or is it going to be the local the local issues with the local people that are going to dominate? I don't know, it's up in the air. Sadly, I think myself that a few national events are going to overtake what's happening locally, and the local MPs are going to be judged not on their own personality, not on their own politics, not on their own local issues, but on the national one. And in my mind, that's not right. I'm old-fashioned that way.
Yeah, okay. So, Martin, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yes, I sort of agree with Jim on a few of those points, because I think he is popular. Anyone that sort of, you know, he's been hit, he's won, what, 2 is 3, is it?
I think he's won 3.
3, yeah, that's right. So he's obviously popular within the party. Perhaps it's not been sold right. I mean, he's very rarely on television, is he? You know, I mean, you don't see, you see May all the time and so forth. And I do think the media does have a little control on that. However, with Corbyn being popular as he is, I just wish he'd get his message out a little bit more. You know, I mean, I have read in the Telegraph and the papers that you know, he's going to stop anything hitting the NHS and so forth, and he's got what I think are very saleable policies. But
can you think of a bad policy that has come from...
Well, I think one of the things that people are worried about, I don't know if it's bad, but people are worried about his thoughts on defence and so forth, aren't they, really? You know, Trident, etc. That's a big thing for a lot of people. You know, when you're a small country and you've got an army of what, have we 250,000 soldiers? I don't know. And the world is unstable as it is today. I suppose the attitude is, well, you know, to stop anything, if we're powerful, no one's going to sort of pick on us because we've got this really great big rocket coming out of a submarine or whatever. And they're worried about that. I think people are worried about that. So, yeah, I think people certainly are looking at the defence side of things, really. Yeah.
You're nodding.
Yes, I can't help comparing Corbyn with Michael Foot. There are a great deal of similarities. popular with the people, not necessarily with the party, and all this. Hard to get elected. Defence problems. Well, I call it problems because of they're not wanting to make Britain into a viable force. They're wanting to reduce some of the power of Britain's military. So I do believe that is one of the few problems.
Right, okay, well, we have a few weeks to see how this all unfolds, and no doubt we'll be talking about it on Roundtable and anywhere else for the next few weeks. So we can perhaps move on a little bit to now and to something very different. Former England footballer Aaron Lennon was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. Is this a sign we need to focus more on people's mental health? Is it a taboo for men to discuss their mental health? We've had lots in the media around mental health in the last few months or so. Some very welcome discussions about how we deal with mental health, whether it's the professionals or how, as citizens, we react to people's mental health. And this is just one example. So, you know, do you think we're kind of turning the corner culturally in terms of how we deal with mental health? Helen?
I think things are improving. I don't think they're anywhere near where they need to be, really. I mean, we don't know the details of this particular story, but when somebody's sectioned, that's really a very last resort. You know, a member of my family has been sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and it's a dreadful experience for everybody involved. It's frightening. It's terrible. It's very upsetting. And I work a lot with people with their mental health issues, a lot of anxiety and depression and things like that. But it is mostly women that I see, and very few men. And yet, the kind of pressures that people are under, personally, professionally, with the sort of rise of social media, there's so much pressure on people. There's a lot of pressure to be available 24/7, and I think people's stress levels are much higher than they ever used to be, and so it can trigger mental health issues, I think, and I think it is still difficult, particularly for men, to admit that kind of weakness, because there is, even if there is less of a taboo with other people, there's a taboo in your mind. You're worried about telling your employer. I mean, I was working with somebody this week who had been signed off work with stress, and they were most concerned about what their employer would make of that bit of information on their doctor's note, and would that mean that they were going to be sacked as a result? Well, actually, a lot of the stress had come from work, and therefore work was responsible to resolve this issue for them. Because in a former life I used to be an HR manager, and so it's people are still fearful of acknowledging mental health issues.
Do you think that something needs to be done in terms of our employers? Because you're quite right when you say that a lot of stress, I mean, people get stressed for all sorts of reasons, but a lot of stress originates in the workplace, because we spend a lot of time there if we're working.
Yeah, you do.
Do you think there needs to be some, I don't know, way of helping employers to deal more effectively with mental health? I don't know if it needs a new policy or just training. What does it need?
That's an interesting question, actually. I think from an employer's point of view, they've just got to be much more tuned in, much more aware. So the managers at grassroots level need to be much more aware of their members of staff that report to them, and so much more aware of the pressures that they're putting them under. And, you know, somebody else that I worked with a few weeks ago that felt as though they were carrying their entire department, and they were much more conscientious than the other workers, so they would work much longer hours because they wanted the job to be done right rather than just slapdash get it done. But that was putting an enormous amount of pressure on them, and also it meant that the manager was saying, Fred blogs, can you take this job on because I know that you'll do this great? And so he's ending up with even more work, and so it was actually backfiring on him. And so I think employers just need to be much more aware, and I think it's so easy when you're caught up in the daily grind just to ignore that sort of stuff and just think, well, I've just got to get this done, or I've got this deadline, because everybody's under their own pressures, aren't they? It's so difficult.
Absolutely. Martin, have you any thoughts about this, any experience?
This is come out because of this football, Aaron Lennon, but we know it does exist, and quite rightly Helen says it does come from the workplace. I've seen it with young people. It's not so long ago working in an environment where you would go, for instance, to the computer with the manager, and that person would say you're in the red or you're in the green and stuff like that, and what can we do about it to help you? So I've seen firms that sort of do it that way and say, yes, right, how can we improve, etc., etc. But these young people, they get very stressed with it all, you know. And some people make the grade, some don't, and that's part of life as well, isn't it? And other people just blunder through life as stress doesn't touch them at all. And it can come at different times. I mean, for instance, I remember when I got married and everything, I had depression, and it wasn't very sympathetically treated. In fact, really, I just kept it quiet as much as I could. I had a bit of a bad time with it, but it made me stronger later. I think sometimes you have to go through these things in life, and so I can look back and say, yeah, I became tougher, but I do realise some people, it can be very, very bad, and it can go on for a long time. I only had it a matter of 6 months.
And do you think people keep it quiet because they fear what other people might think of them, or is it their own
I think certainly in the
playing out in
70s,
that way?
it was a shameful thing. People didn't know. I think it's a little bit different nowadays. People are aware of stress and everything, and all the various sort of fringe type ways that people go to, like, well, you know, and get it treated, etc. Some go down the medical route. Some might go to, you know, Helen. There's no route wrong. I didn't go down the medication route. I somehow sort of worked it through myself. It just depends on the individual. I currently know someone at the moment who's going through a lot of stress, and it's manifested itself in very, very strange ways. But, you know, that's part of life, really. You know, I do think that employers should take more responsibility. You know, they've got the workers there. If there's a problem, it should be addressed. And I think a lot probably do. You know, they say, well, you know, what's wrong and so forth. But I do think still, it's that thing on the record, stress. You know, it's like a flag, isn't it? You know, it's a real red flag for someone in HR going, well, look at this, and got to watch out for that. And it sort of goes through the record, you know, and yet we're human beings, aren't we? We're not machines.
Yeah, you're nodding, Jim.
Yes, on the employer's side, if you've got a history of stress, you're less likely to get promoted into a position where there's more stress.
You say that definitively.
I'm saying that definitively, personal experience in organisations. But I think the overall problem is the size thing. The population is growing. The number of employees in a particular firm is growing. When there was less people around and the workforce in any particular location was smaller, people got to know each other better and also helped each other more. And without that sort of cooperation, right from the start, yes, stress is going to grow. And without that sort of cooperation, it's not going to be shared. We need not just to throw money at this, we need to do it somehow or other, get the community involved and throw time, our own time at it.
So you're saying, which is an interesting way of putting it, is about time and space and all of that, as opposed to money. Because one of the suggestions is that maybe more money should be more funding should be made available to the National Health Service. So are you saying that...
I'm not against that. The National Health Service does need our support and funds for all sorts of different reasons. But one of the prime things, and National Health Service is way behind this, is way for this, is not the treatment of something, but the prevention of something. And we can help prevent stress by relating to other people better.
Yeah, yes, I yes, I kind of agree with that, absolutely, because I think, and Helen, I guess you might agree with that, it's about how people are able to, how you listen to people and understand what's going on. And
I was particularly interested when it was the London Marathon, wasn't it, last week, that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry were very, very involved with their charity work that they're doing. They're involved in mental health charity, and they've been speaking out. Prince Harry and Prince William have both spoken out about their mental health issues that they've gone through, particularly after losing their mother at such a young age. And I think things like that, where somebody that's in a public position like that, that's has the opportunity to speak out and say, look, this is normal, this is acceptable, this is a real thing, and the best thing that you can do is get some help, and here's the help that I had, and this really helped me. I think things like that really make a big difference. I think Stephen Fry is another one that talks quite openly about his mental health issues in the past, and I think it helps because it normalises it then, because it is an illness in the same way that having a chest infection is an illness. You need some help to fix it sometimes. I mean, it's brilliant that Martin was able to help himself work through that, but not everybody is capable of doing that, and sometimes they can spiral downwards into a bit of a dark place, really. So I think what the NHS needs actually is a range of ways to help people out, because unfortunately what I tend to see with my clients is that they go in, they see the doctor and they've got depression, and the first thing they get handed is a packet of pills, and that isn't necessarily always the best solution, because you can end up in a bit of a slippery slope and a lifetime of taking antidepressants, and that's not really great for anybody, really, is it? So I'd like to see more holistic approaches to mental health. There's somebody that does this amazing work in my village called the Green Man, and he's got some funding to work with adults with mental health issues to work in the outdoors. So his work that he does is taking people out into a wood and getting them building fires and carving wood and making spears, and just actually stopping. Do you know what I mean? Just taking time, getting in touch with nature and doing something with their hands, and getting away from all the technology and all the pressures and things like that. And I think that's an amazing scheme. That really in favour of
Can I
that.
just sort of put in there that that's, funnily enough, for a while, my garden was like dreadful for 3 years. And I'm into all this technology, and I thought it's not working. I hadn't touched a computer for ages. All right, I'm on the phone. But the point is, once I got out and got into the garden doing things like that, it all disappeared. You're absolutely right. It does make a difference. I'll start making spears.
well, let's hope that the focus on mental health this year actually does bring about the sorts of changes, because it strikes me that it's as much a change in attitude as anything that needs to happen, and giving people the time and space to deal with whatever they're going through. So hopefully more projects like that will emerge as a result of that. So we'll see what happens there. The number of people in England forced to wait more than 18 weeks for a non-urgent operation. I'm not sure what is classed, how you term a non-urgent operation. And this could more than double as a result of the NHS decision to relax the obligation on hospitals to treat 92% of them in that time. This is according to a leaked document. So, any experiences there? What are your thoughts about that? Jim?
I think it goes back to what I was saying. The NHS needs our help in all round cases. They need more people available to do the job that they're trying to do, and that unfortunately need more money to do that job. But it also goes back to my point, it's capturing and preventing rather than dealing with the after effects. Is doing a lot more on the prevention side. That's why they're bringing the MOT for people's idea. Catch things early.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to time-consuming and expensive treatment later.
Helen?
That's interesting. I've not heard of the MOT then. That sounds like a great idea. I wonder how many men will go to that. Having just talked about men and mental health, they're a bit the same with
It tends to be
doctors
on an age thing at the moment, so
Yeah.
when you get to a certain point, they'll give you a full check through
Yeah.
and flags up, stress-related things, diabetic-related things like that. That had they been diagnosed further down the path, they would have been much harder to treat with. Diagnosing early is an easy cure. A lot of the cancer checks and breast checks, things like that,
Yeah.
that's the reason why it's done. Prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the relaxing of the regulations around the time that should elapse for?
Well, I'm always a bit dubious about statistics and this, that you've got to treat 92% of them within 18 weeks. Well, what does that actually translate to? Because does it mean that things are being done effectively and efficiently, or is it that things are shuffled in such a way to manipulate the figures so that people meet the figures rather than people are getting the best service? So I'm always a bit wary about targets like that, because people will, and it is just human nature, they will manipulate things in order to meet a target, won't they? So that I'm never that thrilled with things like that. But that said, if you're somebody that's waiting for something that's classed as non-urgent, I suspect that it feels pretty damn urgent to you, actually, that, if you're in pain, if you're in discomfort, if it's stopping you working, if it's stopping you living your life, I think you will probably find that as an urgent thing. If it's something you're worrying about because you're waiting for a scan or something like that, and that's 18 weeks for an operation, that doesn't include any follow-ups you might need. What's to say that operation isn't an exploratory operation and then it needs something else following on, and lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Does it mean that you get an appointment within the time, and then of course you get it cancelled at some later stage, so, because that happens quite a lot, I think.
I've got a friend who's waiting for a hospital appointment, and they were concerned at first that it might be something cancerous, and that appointment, to be fair, was fairly quickly dealt with, and he's been told that it's not cancer, so that's a big relief. However, the next thing that's happened is that he needs some kind of neurological scan, and he doesn't really know why, but he's been told that there's no way that'll happen within 18 weeks. So in the meantime, his mind is going crazy. It's not cancer, but it's something going on with my brain instead. And of course, can you imagine what that does to your mental well-being in that time? It's terrible. So, I'm not sure what the solution is really, other than that clearly we're understaffed in the NHS.
Yes.
We've got lots of people, bureaucrats and managers manipulating figures and churning out reports, haven't we? But we haven't got enough actual nurses. But how do we attract people into that role? Because they're more likely to ship off to Australia, aren't they, where the working conditions and the pay is so much better. What do we do to plug that gap? I'm not really sure.
Martin.
Yes, right. Well, and this, I agree about statistics and everything, and I'm absolutely dreadful when it comes to medical things, and I do bury my head in the sand more so now that I'm on my own. But yes, looking at this, 92%, is this just a money thing? Is it, you're right about the staff, we're having less staff, we're going to lose more staff as well, there's going to be this, you can only live for so many years, then you're shipped off again to that country, and you can only be here for so many years, and off you go. As you know, in Bradford, we've got a lot of staff from Philippines and from all over the world, and when I was a young man growing up and had problems and everything, there were Irish nurses in those days, so it is to do with obviously staff, and it's obviously to do with funding as well. And if you're a few accountants in the room and say, what can we do to cut money straight away without impacting what we're, on what we've got? Well, we can sort of cut money a little bit by extending the time, but where is there isn't a barrier, there isn't a level. They haven't actually said what they're, well, it hasn't said it here, what they're going to class as non-urgent.
Yes.
I would like to see that. and everything. And as my old granny used to say, if you shout the loudest, you'll get treated because they just want to get rid of you, you know, and so forth. So there is that as well. There'll always be someone that'll say, no, blow this. I'm just going to, you know.
I think the significant thing there is what Helen said earlier, that actually urgency is really probably down to the patient. But I suspect that the professionals are not necessarily using that as the measure. They're using the medical, if somebody's going to die as a result. But if you're in serious pain, that is urgent.
It is urgent, but you'd go to your GP, wouldn't you? And then, of course, you make a bit of a nuisance there at your health centre.
If you can get an appointment.
Well, I ain't always got an appointment, really, but you push through for these things, don't you? You know.
So that means you must have a loud voice.
Sometimes you have to have a loud voice.
All right, okay. You're listening to BCB. 106.6 FM, and it's we have Maureen Grant on the Roundtable with Helen Weir, Jim Saville, and Martin O'Connell. Now we're changing a little bit in terms of we've been dealing with some serious stuff here. So we had a tour the Yorkshire last weekend, and we had record attendance, which was really very encouraging. And there calls for the tour to be extended to a fourth day. So organizers of the cycling tour has renewed calls to extend the race to a fourth day after record spectator attendance figures. An estimated 2.2 million watched the 3 stages taken to the East Coast on Friday, Yorkshire's Marketstown on Saturday, and 8 climbs on Sunday. So, did any of you see this?
I took steps not to see it.
Oh, okay, let's hear more about that.
I mentioned in a pre-chat about I'm more into participation than observation when it comes to sports, and sadly not enough into participation at the moment. But to my mind, it didn't strike me as anything attractive. It did strike me as a nuisance. The place I knew I wouldn't be able to get to because of that.
Yeah,
so I went over to Lancashire because I knew there's things I could do over there.
So you won't be arguing for a fourth day then?
Absolutely not. And we talked a few minutes since about statistics. Who provided these viewing statistics? Because as far as I'm aware, there was no actual cost of viewing, so it's just a matter of what people thought, how they assessed it. And if it's the people who are organising the race who are doing the assessment, then take their figures with a pinch of salt. And if they want an extra day, which is going to cause an extra lot of inconvenience to a lot of people, be careful.
Okay. Martin?
I think Jim's got a good point there, really, because you're quite right. You couldn't go anywhere of that bank holiday at all in that area. Although, having said that, I know it's a good advert for Yorkshire, and I know it brings in tourism. So there's 2 sides going on there. As for myself, if it was on television, you know, something to do, I'd sort of look at it and I thought, yeah, all very good and so forth. But I mean, I for myself wouldn't stand on the road just to watch a load of cyclists go by and go, whoop, and that's the end of it. You know, I'd just be thinking, I've had to walk. I've had to park my car miles away to walk to this for something that's just going to, whoop, and it's gone. I'm thinking, good grief, you know, I could have had a beer by this time, or, you know, I've been had interesting conversations. So, you know, I mean, I know it's all very good and it's hyped up Yorkshire, and from that perspective, it has helped the tourist side of things. But you know, it's hit it right here. You know, you're thinking, well, I wouldn't mind going up to the Dales or somewhere like that, and you know, it's not just the crowds that are going to be there. God, I'm going to get hammered on this one on Facebook. But it's not just the crowds, but you suddenly having to join traffic that it wouldn't be as bad. And you're thinking, so it then impacts on the locals that would like to take time out. Now, it's all right for me. I'm retired and I can go when the hell I want. But a lot of people are not retired. In fact, you know, people still working in the 60s, so it'd be lovely to drive. Oh, you can't drive there. In fact, I had a friend said, no, we can't do that. Simply because, no, that's where it's going. I actually had to look at the route to see if it would impact, you know. I'm going to end up in a right miserable old curmudgeon over it, I know, but I don't really care, because he has got a point. I may not agree on everything he says, likewise, but he has got a point.
Yeah, it is a valid point.
You won't get this on calendar, folks.
To take up what Martin just said there, when the was at the start of the Tour de France was over here, they actually had areas defined, designated for the route, and villages were allowed to not go in or out of that village for an entire day. If you were in Leeds, there was a demarcation line through the centre of Leeds, and you weren't allowed to cross it. That time we were actually organising a festival and wanted to get some St John's ambulance people to help us. And they said, well, we'll have to take them from the south because those on the north won't be able to get across to you. It
could be very disruptive.
It has a very great effect on the economy. And I had to laugh that it said it went through the market towns on the Saturday, when I thought that's when the markets are the busiest and most people are in there.
Yes. Yes.
Any positive thoughts about
Yes, I really like the Tour de Yorkshire.
You're real easily bought, you are.
I am. I was there and I was working away on Friday, and I'd got the TV on in the background while I was working, and I was watching all this glorious Yorkshire countryside unrolling in front of me, and I was just so proud of where I lived. And I've got to be honest, I haven't got a clue what's going on with the cycling. I don't understand what a peloton is. I don't understand what these little sprints are. I haven't got a clue what's going on, but I do find and I'm not interested in the cycling bit, I suppose, but I do really like watching the Yorkshire countryside unrolling like that. I think it's just, we live in an incredible place.
It's about the spectacle of the
spectacle
event.
of it, I think so. But also I think, it's quite good in that it will motivate people to actually get out on the bikes. Cycling will actually increase as a result of having this going on in our local area. I mean, we were out on our bikes this weekend, and I'm not sure it's directly as a result of the Tour de Yorkshire, but definitely seeing more and more people out on the road on bikes, and I'm sure you two probably think that's a massive inconvenience as well when you're driving around in your car.
No, I don't. I used to do cycling. I don't think it's... Yeah. I used to do a lot of cycling and I really enjoyed it, but, when there's a weekend coming up, I'm talking about people who work, etc., and they want to go. Not everyone's going to buy into that. They just want to go somewhere. They've worked all week, and where can we go? And now, if this is year after year, I know this is not going to be popular. I'm not against it. I mean, it's nice to see all the filming and all that sort of thing. But from the point of view, there is something where it does affect people's lives. They think, I don't want to watch the cycle rep, but I'd like to go there. The market town. I mean, you're not going to sell any wares at 30 miles an hour to some guy on a bike whipping through, and everything's sealed off. So it does impact. I mean, where there's a positive, there is a negative, isn't there?
But what about the people that have gone to that market town that might not necessarily have been to that market town before and thought, do you know what, this is a really nice place. I think I'll come back here when the market's on and see what it's like.
It's a good point. I mean, I sort of see that, but I think in the world of the internet, if I want to go somewhere different, I can just press a button and think, I won't mind having it, because I used to do that, say to my wife, we'll go up to Helmsley, which is a lovely place, and everything. So I sort of see it, but I can see the point of the... I mean, if you don't say... There is inconvenience, there has to be, because you can't ignore that. I mean, just driving anywhere where roads are sealed off and things like that. I know you can go on and sort of look at the map and say, well, we're not going there today, I'm going to Lancashire. And there's lots of nice places in Lancashire. I'm sure other places available.
I'm Jim.
I agree. The problem I found, the biggest problem, was the lack of information. In fact, I went on the net to look at the routes. For example, locally, Canal Road, there's a sign up there for 2-3 weeks before and said, delays expected. It didn't say what part of the route it's delayed, it didn't say at what time it was delayed, it didn't say how long it's going to be delayed for. So I just ignored, I found details around.
So there's a serious message here to organisers. It's about there is, without the shadow of a doubt, going to be disruption if there's a race going on in the city. So it's about how that is communicated to citizens. And the second thing is they can perhaps give some more thought to the disruption itself, you know. So those are two things that could happen, I suppose, to organizers can take into their stride a little bit.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Beautifully summarised.
We might or might not get this for a day, but you know.
We're going to get death threats.
Well, you will.
No big deal.
Right. Okay. So yesterday, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has announced his retirement from public engagements from autumn this year. Buckingham Palace has announced the 95-year-old Prince Philip has the full support of the Queen. The announcement was made after all members of the Queen's household were gathered at Buckingham Palace for a rare staff meeting. Can you imagine? So, the man is 95. What else, is there anything to, what do we have to say about this?
I think, bless him, I think it's time that he did step back. I can't imagine how exhausting it must be at 95. Well, he's going to be 96, I think, isn't he, by the time he actually steps down. I don't think we're referring it to a step down rather than retirement, which I think there's a subtle difference there, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
And I think he's one of those people that's actually grown in the nation's affection, because probably 15, 20 years ago, he kept popping up in the media for all the wrong reasons, all the offensive comments that he used to make. And he's just like everybody's lovable old granddad, isn't he? That just comes out with what's going through his brain at that particular point. And I think, bless him, give him some time just to put his slippers on and watch Coronation Street or whatever it is he wants to do.
Jim?
Well, I've got a lot of time for the man. I was very heavily involved in the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. I've actually met him a few times. And he's an amazing character. Yeah, he is prone to gaffes. But he does a heck of a lot of good. And he's also, what he doesn't get much credit for, is his counselling role within the monarchy.
Tell us
that
more.
is not going to be stopped. Well, for example, his relationship with the Queen, the head of the Commonwealth, the head of the government, also, he is sort of her rock. I mean, it is a proper marriage. They communicate and they help each other. And that role is not going to stop. And what is going to stop is an active physical side of the things. And at 95, I'm surprised he's been able to keep doing what he's been doing for so long. Let him take a little bit easier and last a lot longer.
Okay, Martin, can you add?
He's the patron of 800 organisations.
Yes.
And he is still carriage driving.
Yeah.
Which I find quite amazing. I mean, a team of horses at 95. Come on. You've got all right, he makes gaffes. We all do. I mean, I wish people would get up with the real world, You can open your mouth and you can gaff all you like and everything, but it's an opinion, and then it's a democracy, and da-da-da-da. And one or two people may get a little bit hissy about it and so forth, but at the end of the day, he's done his job. 95. He's been a rock. I mean, whether you're a royalist or not, just look at him as a man, an individual who has got very high profile, who did not necessarily want it. He wanted to be in the Navy, but he sort of gave all that up to be the Queen's Rock. And he's allowed a bit of peace, put his feet up, go off carriage driving with Lady Whatsits or whatever. And but he's still going to be part of the patrons thing. He's sort of, at the present moment, he's sort of said, right, okay, there's nothing new after this date. So, and it's the travelling, isn't it? He's got to travel to there, go to there, here to there. That's a lot for a guy, and he's meeting people. Yes, that's very good. Yeah, that's fine. I wish I was carriage driving, really, and so forth. And yeah, you can't blame him. Yeah, so cut the guy a bit of slack, whether you like royalty or not. He's earned it. He's more than earned it, hasn't he?
At 95, I think.
The amount of time he stands around, if you just think about Remembrance Sunday, how long does he stand?
I wouldn't do it.
On
I
that
just
day?
think, oh my God,
And the guy is ramrod straight. I mean, he's still very fit for somebody that that age is amazing, isn't
military, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
so it'll be like that. And I think, yeah, I mean, he just deserves that break. In fact, funnily enough, one of the papers online, it was all about Prince Philip, and of course they all brought up the gaffes, and they all do that for
yeah.
year after year after year, and they recycle it because it just fills headlines. And I bet that's all it's about. And I bet he looks at it and said, "Oh, go away! It wasn't in the context of, you know, if you take that bit out. I was having a joke. I've done it, and I've put my foot in it, and I will always put my foot in it. And it was things like that. But you are what you are.
I think people are too easily offended actually these days.
tell me
It's
about
ridiculous,
it,
and the people having to trot out public apologies is just nauseating.
I used to be brought
can't be
into
doing with it.
I used to be brought into the office for telling inappropriate jokes some years ago, and I'd end up with these three.
Don't tell any to
No,
me.
no.
Save that for
No,
Facebook.
I'd end up with these three women, and they'd go out and say, "Now listen, we have to look stern in front of everyone that is in trouble." They've been laughing for about an hour, and someone said, "We thought you were in real trouble this time, Martin. You're even in an hour." What they didn't say, I was having a bit of a laugh with them and stuff like that, because some little hissy had said something that, "Oh, I don't think that's appropriate," and stuff like that, you know.
Oh, well,
I mean, it wasn't that
okay.
all over the top, you know.
We moved into a different subject, which we will not here to
Coward.
talk about. Okay, I take that on the chin. All right, okay, time is moving on, and we have one more thing. We cannot leave here. We cannot possibly leave without mentioning Bradford City playoff. So they've got one leg left, which is going to be on Sunday. No, that was. They probably have got one leg left. One leg of the playoffs left.
I'm glad this is not on camera.
That is on Sunday. So, what do you think their chances are of being promoted?
You're looking at me, and
No football.
I wish I knew more about football. I really did. I'm afraid.
Well, what you need to understand is that they are if they win,
They're moving up.
they're moving up a division.
Right.
Right. So that's the excitement.
Well, I really hope in that case that they win, because I'm sure it'll make lots of people very, very happy. And I know people take football really seriously, even down to a local level, don't they? I just wish I was one of them.
A word of warning, though, there might be some disruption on the streets when they celebrate.
On Canal Road especially.
Right. So no football, real football followers.
Well, you know, I hope they do well. I mean, 1-0 against Fleetwood and everything, I thought they would have done better, you know, on the home ground. So I think people are still nervous. They're not going in, you know, full bore on this one. But yes, it'll be great if they go up. I think it's good for the city, everything. Certainly good for the club. And it's the best supported, you know, in that league, and others as well. So the supporters have really done their job as well. So yes, let them go up.
Yeah, good. Anything to add to that, Jim?
I agree as a Bradfordian that, yeah, okay, fine. I couldn't care less about the game. What I do have slight concern about is that some of my Fleetwood friends are going to hear me say this. Because it's a place I have good connections with over there. Used to do a lovely folk festival. The new one's improving as well.
I hope you'll still be able to visit then.
Oh, I certainly shall.
That's two of us getting death threats.
Well, I think it's time to say goodbye. I think I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for all your discussion and contributions. It's been really interesting. So, any final words for the weekend before you leave, Jim?
Get out there and enjoy it.
Helen?
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, isn't it? So enjoy our Yorkshire countryside.
And I shall try to dig my pond a little bit and everything, very deep and long, and I like water, so that's my thing. So maybe.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. And this is Maureen Grant saying goodbye from Roundtable.